Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I get a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Unless there's any changes to the minutes, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. The board met in closed session. I have nothing to report out. So we're going to move on to recommendations and commendations, and we're going to start with our student of the month from Oceana High School. Okay, there you go. The floor is yours. You can do it.
The Jefferson Union High School District Student of the Month program is designed to recognize the many outstanding achievements within the school and in the community of the students in our district. Selected by their teachers and administrators, the Student of the Month exemplifies the degree of academic achievement, leadership, and community consciousness we would like to see in all of our students. Since only 5 of the roughly 4,300 students in our district received this recognition, being chosen as Student of the Month is quite an honor. Tonight we will be recognizing the 2019-2020 March Student of the Month. Please join me in welcoming Leon Zhao, a senior at Oceana High School. Here tonight with Leon are his parents Kiwa and Jenny Zhao, and family friend Kathy Chan. Leon has earned respect and accolades from...
Leon understand?
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Leon has earned respect and accolades from students and staff alike. His parents emigrated from China without the opportunities afforded to Leon. An only child, Leon will be the first in his family to graduate high school and attend college. In 9th grade, Leon earned a 4.0 while participating in mock trial and boys tennis. Outside of school, he began pursuing his dreams by joining the Civil Air Patrol, a U.S. Air Force auxiliary group. At the same time, he started volunteering for Mills Peninsula Hospital and Excelsior Community Food Pantry. In his free time, he took a biology boot camp at Skyline College. In the 10th grade, Leon again earned a 4.0. He did his sophomore exhibition on the legal oppression of women in Afghanistan. For an extra challenge, he attended Biology Enriched after school. Elected to the role of 10th grade treasurer, Leon was instrumental in bringing the point-of-sale system to Oceana. His work with the school's financial recording system was foundational for the school. Leon continued to excel in the 11th grade, earning a 4.14 GPA, taking AP Literature and AP US History. He continued in his role as treasurer for the 11th grade and implemented point-of-sale paperwork. He also snuck in a course at Skyline College on web design. In the summer, Leon represented Oceana at Boys State, where his city was named Model City and his county was named Model County. No surprise considering what a model student Leon is. In the 12th grade, Leon increased the rigor of his course load by taking 4 AP classes: AP Government, AP Language, AP Chemistry, and AP Calculus, again earning straight A's. He will be Oceana's salutatorian at graduation. As ASB treasurer, he led 6 new ASB members. Outside of school, Leon earned a promotion to cadet captain in his work at the U.S. Air Force Auxiliary. To round out his classes at Oceana this year, Leon chose to work as a TA to support students with special needs in math. Students in Oceana are required to complete 100 hours of community service. Leon has currently logged 1,143.25 hours of community service. Leon has already been accepted to UC Irvine, SF State University, and USF with the promise of a $100,000 scholarship. Eventually, he wants to attend a uniformed service university such as the U.S. Air Force Medical School, as his dream job is to be an Air Force surgeon. Staff was effusive in praising Leon for his kindness and dedication to staff and students alike. One teacher shared, "Leon is always engaged in class. He asks great questions and makes connections to what we are learning in class with what is happening in the world. He often pursues learning more about the content on his own. He truly loves to learn. Leon is committed to the community both inside and outside of the classroom, and even in the greater community. He is calm, kind, and thoughtful, and exceptionally good at communicating with his peers and adults. We all echo another teacher's accolades. As a teaching assistant this year, Leon has been serving as a math tutor for students experiencing significant obstacles to learning math. Leon has excelled at this work in a variety of ways. He has interacted with students to make them feel respected and valued, provided encouragement and practice in the right way at the right time, and has learned to understand students' unique ways of communicating. Leon has successfully analyzed patterns in the ways that students learn and made insightful recommendations regarding pedagogy.
Yeah.
And curricula. He often stays after to make certain everything is organized and up to date, and finds ways to improve classroom procedures. As such, Leon has displayed through this role the sensitivity, compassion, and skill needed to support students facing a range of educational obstacles, and has shown an exceptional commitment to addressing inequities in education. Getting to know Leon more during his senior year has been a singular privilege. He is clearly passionate about making the world a better place. He makes every minute count in and out of class, going to campus over the summer and taking courses in web design and biotechnology online. I have been particularly excited to learn about his love of science and medicine and how he has set big goals for himself after high school. In all activities and pursuits, it is clear that Leon already brings an incredible mindset and skill set well beyond his years, and that is making the world a better place. His integrity, abilities, and contributions are lauded by staff and students, and we are incredibly proud he is a part of our school. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019-2020 Jefferson Union High School District Student of the Month, Leon Zhao.
Board and students and family.
Congratulations. Not many people come with a fan club. That's
What comes in with, yes, April's ready to take. Bring your family up.
friends. You want somebody to give to one of them?
Leon.
Your camera too.
Actually, can I text you?
Yeah.
Less than 100 in this picture. Less than 100. I'm so hungry. I didn't eat. It's in my purse. I couldn't. I was talking. I need cookies.
And students, we know you have homework, so don't feel like you have to stay for the entire meeting.
I gotta go look at my senior X.
That's right. Coming up. It's coming up. Thank you. Thank you. Have nothing. To read, we have a certificate.
There's a certificate, and then I put a little something in the agenda.
Oh, okay, it's not coming up.
Yeah, it's not coming up for me either.
It's not coming up.
Like notes?
No, nothing's coming up. That's okay.
This is what you're gonna read?
I guess that's fine. Okay, so moving on to the next item, we have the Woman of the Year for the 11th Senate District. Rowena, don't start crying anything yet. So if you want to come forward. Say the last name for me again so I say it correctly. Mayafua, okay. So, I'm sure everybody's going to have a lot to say, but I'm just going to kick it off by saying that I met you a couple years ago when my daughter was going to Jeff. And you immediately, this is a person that you need to know on campus. We worked together in the spaghetti feed. And that was the first time I saw a little touch of your organizational skills. I had no idea. I was like, wow, she pulled all this together, and I didn't know that you had like Pitt in you. So then when I saw Pitt, I was like, when does she have the time? When she gives so much to the school and the students at JUHSD, that you still have so much time for the community, blows my mind. It is amazing how big your heart is and how much of it you give to so many people around us. So, you know, this is a nod to the intelligence of Senator Wiener, that he could recognize the jewel that you are within our district, and it's well-deserved, so congratulations.
I can't even talk right now, because you mean so much to us. And when I first met you, that's when we realized we're part of this, community, because I went to school with your siblings. You're a Poti. I went, no way, you're a Poti. So, but it's, I'd always heard of you, and then when I finally met you, it was like we were sisters. And that's how you make everybody feel like family. And you are a force, but you're so gentle. And it's done, you don't tell people what to do. We want to do things with you. And so I just want to say thank you, and you're so well deserving of this.
I have not had the pleasure to get to know you as much as all the other ladies have, but I remember I'm just going to go back on piggybacking about doing things with you, because I remember donating a few things to the craft feed per Rosie's suggestion. And so about you having the community do things for you, like I didn't even know you that well, and I was already giving to you. So thank you for all you do for a community. Really appreciate it. I definitely look forward to working with you so much more through the years. So thank you.
You know, I think if there's a heart to Jeff, it's standing right before us. Oh, wow. Because I know that anytime I see you on campus, you greet me with just the biggest, most awesome hug. And that, to me, just speaks volumes about just who you are and the feeling of welcome. And you know, when I was at the crab feed a couple of years, last year or the year before, was it last year? Boy. I mean, it was just amazing just to see what a finely tuned machine it was, and the work that you did to just give back to to the school's community. So thank you so much.
Allergic to crab, so it's always known as the spaghetti feed. But I enjoyed it. I don't know if any of the student trustees have anything to say. No, we can move on.
Yeah, seeing you at Jeff, working the car shows and everything like that, it's just amazing to see everything run so smoothly. I'm thankful that you're part of our community, and yeah, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
And I would like for all of our schools to be homes for students. And I think, Raina, one of the things you do is you help Jeff be a home for so many people. And I will just share at the board, if I need to get information out to people in the community, I have key people that I want to make sure have that information so that the facts are going out. And if there's something I need to know, you can believe it, Raina's going to let me know. And I appreciate that, and that helps us run a smooth operation. And don't forget to invite me to the crab feed, because that helps.
So I don't know if you have anything you want to share. If not, we could just.
Oops.
There you go.
Hi, Sammy. Well, first and foremost, this is my son, Santa. Sorry. First and foremost, I give all the honor and glory to God for this opportunity, for being here. Oh, I was trying to hold back my tears, but he's going to fly to that. It's okay. I'm in love. I am so honored. I am grateful. I am humbled for this opportunity, especially for this acknowledgement. Who am I but just a servant? And that's what I love to do, is just to serve. And just to serve our community. I have the best boss here next to my other boss. Mr. Shears.
She likes me more than you.
Oh, I love my coworker. I love, he's my friend, my buddy Jose is here. But I just want to say, I am truly honored for this opportunity. I wasn't going to come up here because, like I said, who am I but just a humble servant that just love to give and just to help other people that who are in need and just anyone. But thanks again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So on behalf of the entire district, we are so honored that you're a part of our community. We're so grateful for all the gifts that you give, and I hope that we can, I hope that there's self-care in there, and that you do take care of yourself as much as you take care of us. And that's why I don't want to say, I hope that you stay with us for a long time, because I know as much as you do, you need to get some rest at some point, but I'm so glad that you're part of our district, and I hope you can be a part of it for
And
many years to go.
before I forget, I just want to add another
Yes.
thing that I shared with Mr. Bashir, that we've been working on for a couple of years for Target as well as Amazon. And we were just approved this week.
Yay.
So we're going to start.
Well done.
Yes, we're going to start receiving whatever they sell at Target on Mondays to give back to our school JAG, as well as Amazon. So this is everything that we've been blessed with at Jefferson High School. So I'm going to be that we're blessed at Jefferson High School.
You're very blessed. So congratulations so much, and this is just a small token of our appreciation.
Can I take a picture of the board?
More the merrier.
Here we go. I'm just gonna go. More pictures.
I know, we're handshake,
Down, and brown.
Come on in.
Get on in the picture. Sure, you want me to do one with
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta get a lot more. You like each other, right? There we go. The students know how to do this. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
No, I'm doing different angles.
What a lovely picture.
Oh yeah, stand up straight, shoulders back, but relax. Sorry. Chin out, just kidding. Oh, wait. All right, on 3, 1. Raina, I can't see your own face. Okay. Thank you, Sam. All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh wait, I did video. Oh my god, I did. That was a joke. Okay, I won't post that, sorry. I won't post that, that would be embarrassing. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, got it.
There we go. Congratulations. And thank you to our entire family for letting us use it. All right. Moving on in the agenda to communications, board report, starting with trustee Okonkwo.
All right. I won't have that much to report tonight as the Jefferson ASB is here to give you a lot more details of what's happening at Jeff. Just quickly, badminton, softball, and the baseball seasons are going off nicely. Everyone's playing their games, we're going. But with the recent activity with the coronavirus, a lot of events at Jeff have been canceled from the district email that was sent to basically everyone. A lot of non-mandatory events, so a lot of practices or a lot of non-league stuff has been canceled. And a lot of the players, they're sort of adjusting because, they're a little bummed out that they don't get to practice or play as much in their sport. Plus also, at Jeff, a lot of the rooms have hand sanitizers now. It's due to the protocol of handling the situation with the coronavirus. Soap dispensers are constantly being refilled. Each room is to be sure to have hand sanitizer. And classes are disinfecting things like Chromebooks, or anything like calculators, anything shared to make sure that the disease can be contained in the camp. Anyways, that's it, yeah.
Okay, I feel like I haven't seen you guys in forever, so hi, how are you? So start off with the first thing. So last week had our swim meet, so that was great. But sadly, like what Mr. Ocampo said, a lot of our sports and events and after-school activities have been canceled. It was really sad, but yes, we have soap all the time and hand sanitizer all the time, which is great, lovely. And then I'm happy to say that our spring musical has ended. It's bittersweet, yes, it's sad it's ended, but it was a great show, a great turnout, and everyone seemed to have a great time watching it, so that was nice. Our next play will be Harold and Maude, and Math Week was supposed to happen this week, but that was also canceled, so that was really sad, but that was moved to after spring break. And around 2 weeks ago, we had our mental health week, and we had different booths. We had like different organizations come and present on what they can offer to our school, like like different counseling departments, such as like if you're like depressed, like this is some things you can go to and such. And we were also to make like little tea bags and aromatherapy rollers and bracelets as well. Island Fiesta will be also moved to after spring break, and the music department is having their annual movie night, and everyone is more than welcome to join. And one more thing is that Green Hats are recruiting for next year, and we're actually going to different classrooms during their English periods, and we're even going to the classes for ELD students so that everyone could be able to have a chance and feel included. So that's it.
All right, so yeah, kind of more of the same. Terra Nova, all the same protocols everyone else is going through to make sure everyone's staying safe, staying healthy with all this coronavirus news and getting thrown around. Thankfully, we were able to have Terra Nova hosted a track invitational on the 29th. That was the first one we've hosted in a few years now, since the new coach took over. So that was a huge success. We're really glad we were able to get that. There was a huge turnout, so really glad we were able to get that out of the way before everything else got canceled. Otherwise, it would have not been. It would have been bummed. But so that was a big success. Really glad that worked out. Sports seasons, spring sports taking off. We're supposed to have a rally next week that's been pushed back. Thankfully, they used the word postponed and not canceled. Because with that rally comes the dodgeball tournament. That was so much fun last year. So we really hope that we're able to, get back to that eventually later. But yeah, other than that, we're just trying to hunker down, make sure everyone's good to go, and make sure we're taking all the steps we can to be extra safe with this stuff.
Yeah, and the same thing actually goes for our talent show, that got postponed as well, but we actually don't know if or when it's going to happen, since we've actually just started our spring musical, The Addams Family. So that should be super fun. You should come see it. I'm playing piano, so that's cool. But yeah, we're actually still kind of uncertain about what's going to happen with that. Band has some concerts. I know sports have a lot of different games, so kind of uncertain, but hopefully it'll just be for the month of March. So yeah.
Okay, it's been a while, so this is kind of a lot of stuff. So for Oceana, all of the seniors turned in their Senior X papers, and everyone managed to make the last 8 a.m. deadline, which is good. So everyone's just working on their presentations right now, which is supposed to be on March 27th. In January, we had our career day, which was entirely student-led because our counselor had to go on maternity leave. So we had students being the hosts and ushering all of the presenters for Career Day. We had a new casual dance a few weeks ago, which is new because we never had one in the winter. And it was kind of a learning experience for ASB because not a lot of people went, I think because it was at a weird time. Our mock trial team competed, which I actually was a part of this year for the first time. So that was fun, it was interesting, good learning experience too. And we had our first winter fair, which is a food fair, but for this one we let our interims fundraise because it's hard for the interims to plan their own fundraisers because they don't really meet with their students. Again, our spring sports, track and field, swimming, boys tennis are happening right now. Right now we have our ASB elections and our hygiene drive right now, but our spring carnival had to be canceled and just a few other events because of the virus again. And yeah.
Not a whole lot that I did. It was nice to have a bit of a break, but I was able to be down in Long Beach for the CASH conference, the Coalition for Adequate School Housing, and had the opportunity to speak on a panel about faculty and staff housing, along with staff from LA Unified, Santa Clara Unified, a land use attorney. The moderator is a board member from Elk Grove, and she also happens to work for the company that puts on the conference. So it was cool to be in a room with about 30, 40 construction architectural professionals from school districts and from respective firms, and they all had some very good questions for us. It was very timely considering we had just broken ground and the fencing was already up on our site. So it was good to be able to speak to that and to actually hear some of the pitfalls that LA Unified has gone through, in addition to some of the challenges that Santa Clara has, because their housing is specific only for teachers, not for staff. So, and they want to be able to build more for their classified staff now. But they have some land challenges, and the land that they've got identified, they can't use because they need it for other items. So, but it was fascinating to learn from them and to be able to pass on our institutional knowledge that we've learned from the past couple of years of work that still blows my mind that we have the construction going on out there right now.
I don't have too much to report either. I'm kind of sad to hear all the postponing of all the events. I look forward to all of us getting back to having more school events. We can kind of be supportive of you all. Appreciate Dr. Lori and the school district for us to try to get together and stay informed of everything that's going on. I wish everybody well and be safe and be informed of everything. So that's it.
So a few weeks ago, I attended the Student Advisory Council meeting, and it's always great seeing them. This time they were working mostly on the student trustee applications that are going to go out soon. And it was just great to see their process. They're very collaborative. They're great deep thinkers. I'm so proud to be among them. And let's see. Basically, that's kind of all that. Yeah. But I just want to say that we've all had to become consumed by the COVID-19 situation. It's so fluid, but I'm really proud of how Dr. Gloria and our team has been, working very closely with all the health departments, keeping us informed. The parents, I got my email and my phone call to a parent email and phone call about the latest, and I got 2 today, so I'm really grateful for that because I just feel like we're staying on top of it. So thank you.
Yes, I echo that. Thanks to everyone throughout our district because it's a team effort with our employees, our teachers, our staff, all the custodian and facility workers that are helping to keep everything clean. I mean, it's really an extra lift that we're asking of them to wipe everything down, keep everything filled. So I'm grateful for all the work that the entire district is doing in response to this. I went to the Thornton Back to School night, and I'm grateful for the staff there and all the work that they do. I went to the beam raising at Westmore, where they placed the beam. It was really cool. I was able to sign the beam. I've never been able to do that before. A couple of us went to the Daily City study session for Seton Medical Center. And so it's a little insane to me that one of the largest cities in San Mateo County may be without a community hospital if nothing is done by the county or the state or San Francisco and San Francisco, because they also use that facility quite a bit from the San Francisco side. So we weren't able to attend the meeting that's happening today. So I'm hoping that there was a resolution that allows us to keep that hospital open, because it does a lot. We have a lot of interaction with our district, with our students that volunteer there, with our adult transition program that works there. So it's definitely a community hospital. And then the last thing I want to say is that, board a little while ago, we're living in interesting times, and the climate is heightened for a variety of different reasons. And due to the heightened climate, a year or so ago, the board passed a resolution in support of all of our students, no matter background, ethnicity, sexuality. And I just want to reiterate that resolution in light of everything that's happening with COVID-19, and that hostility towards Asian American community has heightened, which is crazy to me, right? I mean, I don't get it. Sometimes I don't understand my fellow Americans, but I again just want to reiterate that's while we're also looking out for the virus and signs of the virus, that we're also looking out the other symptoms of the virus, which include heightened language or different things that are happening, because I don't want any of our students to feel uncomfortable on campus due to the things that are happening around societally. So I'm hoping that we're also looking out for that, and that we can tackle those issues when they arise or if they arise. So I'm going to pass it over to Superintendent Report and Dr. DeLorean.
So I don't have a lot to report in terms of activities, because as you've heard, a lot of our activities have been canceled. And I was away for a week, so for those of you who don't know, over spring break I took a little tumble skiing at Mammoth and had to have surgery, fractured my femur, but I'm not having any pain, so everything's cool. And actually the week that I was away from the office, that's actually when the coronavirus stuff started. So although I wasn't in the office working, I was at my computer either listening into meetings at the county or the health department, or talking with staff and things like that. So I was really glad that I could get started right from the get-go. I am really pleased to hear that you all have soap at your schools, because we've tried to be really clear with our communications and what our expectations are. And this is what we want to hear. I want to hear that regardless of the school, regardless of the bathroom, that there's soap for people to wash their hands, because we're asking people to wash their hands. And we're using more soap, which means people must be washing their hands. So that's a very good thing. I'm trying to communicate often with staff, with April's help, because sometimes if you go too long without sharing information, people start to talk, and it's really hard for me to combat what we're hearing in the media. The media is doing a lot of stirring up and getting people really anxious, and so we're trying to present facts as much as we have, and this is a situation that changes almost daily. I expect when I get home tonight there'll be some new directive from somebody, and I'll have to communicate that all out tomorrow. I don't have the answers to everything, but I know a lot of the protocols that we have in place are the right things to do, and especially letting people know the facts. When it comes to the avoiding the profiling, that's why it's so important as a district that we have protocols in place. So we have, for the first time ever, have signs at all of our front offices letting visitors know that if you've been out of the country, here's something we need to know. If you have a fever, if you're exhibiting these symptoms. So we have protocols in place so that we don't have people resorting to profiling. I mean, we have protocols for that. We have profiles for how do you address students who might be sick in class, or if you have adults who are sick on your campus. So those are all in place, and I have to say, I am just so pleased and proud with all of our staff and students, because they've cooperated. And it's been hard, they get something new every day, in some cases 2 or 3 times a day, and we reverse something that we said in the morning because we were told something else. And people are responding. And that's what's going to keep us from getting sick. That's what's going to keep us being able to teach in the classroom, and I'm really proud of that. We are going to get some talking points out to the board, because the more we have the facts out there in the community, the more of us who have the facts, we can educate people and try to keep a sort of calm, as much of a calm as you can have around this. We're also creating FAQs to put on our website so parents, students, and the community know what's going on as well. What I can tell you is we're not sitting back and waiting. We're acting now, and we're prepared for whatever comes in the future to the extent that we can. And just thank you to everybody. So seniors, I hope you got some kind of a communication today, or juniors, about the SAT. So we have an SAT coming up on Saturday. So we send information about how to find out if your school is not having it, where it's being held in place. So it's those little things, I think, that help keep us calm and marching forward. So that's all that I have. Thank you to everyone who's helping though. Thank you.
All right, AFT 1481.
Hello.
Hello.
I just have two things. One of our members who was here earlier, Peter Menard, went to Sacramento and participated in Lobby Day. And so he speaks to the representatives there about public school needs, and I think he found it interesting. He actually spoke to you all the last meeting, so he said he was able to bring some of those issues up as well, which was really nice. And he brought back some bills that are on the floor to help public education. So he was helpful, you know, he was helpful to them and hopeful coming back. So I feel like it was a good thing for him to do. Also, we've been collecting signatures for Schools and Communities First, and the deadline is the 20th, so I kind of said this week is it. And hopefully in November that will be on the ballot, and we will probably start phone banking and trying to get people to vote for it. Again, it is so that we can get more money, resources to schools and community programs. 40% of the money will go to schools, and how it will be done is by having big business that, for example, Disney and Chevron, that have been taxed like the 70s taxes. They've been paying the 70s taxes because they've been able to find a loophole, and we would like them to pay their fair share of taxes just like the rest of us do. So it will only affect big business, businesses that have 50 or more employees, okay? And that are, you know, their taxes are not accurate. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the ASB presentation from Jefferson High School. Woo!
Just get into.
Yeah, careful.
Yeah. I like your sweatshirt. I know.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to present some past events and upcoming events at Jefferson High School. My name is Krista May Estrada, and I serve as Jefferson's ASB VP of Outreach.
And hi, I'm Amanda Chuchich, and I am ASB's Vice President of Spirit.
My name is Kaylin Gothas, and I am ASB President at Jefferson. So our first event, as a way to get students ready for next year, we hosted our Electives Fair, where all of our teachers had exhibitions and booths by our musical, dance, electronics, robotics, culinary, wood and auto tech, and digital arts departments to help students pick their electives for next year. A lot of students were very hyped and very excited for their future classes and had a pretty good turnout.
I think I skipped one.
Continuing on in January, that was in December. In December, we sent a group of almost 20 seniors to the California State Building in SF to present our class research projects at the Generation Citizen Action Civics Day. It was our AP Gov and our government classes that attended. We presented our class research projects on school funding, housing, and education policy, and our findings, including a breakdown of various school districts in California and the Bay Area's LCAPs, and a proposed initiative to amend Proposition 13 that could possibly bring more funding into our districts and make school funding more equitable across the state.
Our new journalism club, GNN, recently released their first episode last semester. It went over the topics of sports, unextended lunchtime, and vaping. Their next episode, which is coming out soon, is much more ambitious. It will be covering self-care, Kobe Bryant, the coronavirus, the Philippine volcano eruption, and an interview with Olympian Jeremy Wolf.
Also in early December, our Jefferson band, led by our drum major, Mr. John Ocampo, put on another fantastic show with a mini play called Esperanza. The show overall included music sets including We Are Family, the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, and various holiday favorites like All I Want for Christmas Is You. It was a full house and it was a really fun show to watch.
Our most recent Foods Day, which consisted of 20 clubs participating. So the few more new foods, such as caramel apples and purple cow boba milk tea. You can see a few of the clubs that participated in the pictures here.
Okay.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yes. So in January, we had our winter rally, which was themed Disney versus Pixar. And so it was really good, it was really fun. Everybody got into the spirit. It just brought back everybody to their childhoods. And it was so great to see so many people come out during the LTAs and to dress up. And we also had, fortunately, a lot of participation from staff and from students, and it was just a really great time.
This year's annual Robotics Tournament had 32 teams participating, which is the most we've ever had. We also had a lot of outside help from the robotics classes and from ASB.
All right, next an event that is very near and dear to my heart. On February 6th, 7th, and 8th, our school dance group Mission Fusion hosted its 20th year anniversary production, which we called Pandora, after the Greek myth of Pandora's box. We used it storyline-wise to bring back evil characters from 20 years of storylines who would come to fight their respective good characters, their arch nemesis. It was a lot of fun and a lot of hard work to put in the show. There was a lot of alumni representation. We had a huge surge in dancers. Last year we had maybe like 50, 60 dancers. This year we had over 80. And in the bottom photo, you see me at the front playing the lead evil character. Lots of black. Yeah.
Okay. Last month, we hosted an event for the underclassmen about anti-bullying. A group of BMX bikers came and performed tricks while spreading the message of anti-bullying. The kids responded very well to it.
We can't comment too much on it because we had a senior class meeting at the same time, so we couldn't watch.
From what we heard, people really liked it.
And free.
Free. Ooh, even better.
On Valentine's Day, we had a school-wide heart attack. We put up hearts with every student's names all around the school, which you can see a few students modeling. We also had a few fundraisers that day. Valentine's grams from the class of 22, and chocolate strawberries from class of 23, and purple cow from 2020 from after school.
Okay. As for our upcoming events, unfortunately, status quo, as a lot of the board members presented, a lot of our events have been postponed indefinitely or canceled, which makes us very sad. We're still adjusting, but hopefully things can be reconsidered in coming months and we might be able to bring some of those events back. So here's what we
we hope things work out for what we present today. Yeah.
So we will know this will happen for sure. So this Friday we have an LTA that's supposed to celebrate Kobe and Gigi. And so basically we're going to have an LTA where we have a little basketball game station, and with that we'll have a backdrop and a heart making station so people can write little notes or just saying we'll miss you and of that sort, and then they'll put it on the backdrop, and it's just a little way to celebrate them. And then next, we're currently recruiting students for our blood drive. Anyone 16 years and older is able to donate. It'll definitely happen. We've got confirmation. Next Friday in our lower gym, we're partnering with Red Cross to host this event, and we have many upperclassmen ready and excited to help us save lives 1 liter at a time. And so hopefully we can have our last rally. So we have our final step-up rally. So we have our step-up rally that's meant to have every class celebrate going on to their next one and celebrating the fact that we went through this year. So our theme for our last rally is going to be retro arcade games, Super Mario, Space Invaders,
Street
Fighters, and Pac-Man. Yeah. And so
It's sad that I know all those names.
We all know.
They're all already grown up.
Yeah.
So it's actually going to be really different this year because it's our first rally that's going to happen after school. And so with that, we're tackling it positively, and we're going to have a dance possibly after our rally so more people can come over. So hopefully this will turn out to a success, and it happens on May 1st. And so sadly, Multicultural Fair got postponed and it's moved to May 9th. And so basically this fair is just to promote organizations in our community and to help support clubs and sports. And so hopefully we can have this happen. And our last event that we're really looking forward to is prom. Hopefully we can see prom happening on May 16th. And for this year, our theme is Enchanted Forest, and it's going to happen in Hotel Nico in San Francisco. And yeah, hopefully you can help.
That's it.
That's all we have for today.
Thank you. Opening it up. Stay there, we're gonna ask you some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so opening it up to anyone that has questions for our presenters.
I just want to say that you guys are fantastic, and I just want to specifically say that you are fantastic at Mission Fusion. I watched the whole thing, and you guys danced your heart out, and you guys are great, and regardless of things that are happening in our community, that you are all still positive and still kind of chugging along and getting things done and being positive, so I definitely appreciate that, so thank you. You are fantastic.
I always find it funny when we watch these presentations, every time you guys are taking pieces from each other, from all the different schools, and I loved seeing the musical chairs GIF. And I encourage you to find other uses for something like that, because I think it's just hilarious. I don't know who was the odd person out, but it was fun to watch them just
So the
all
musical
over.
chairs?
Yeah, musical chairs.
Oh, Miss Holloman won, right?
Holloman.
And it's down to her and Mr. Davenport.
No,
Right?
Vega.
Oh, Vega, that's right.
Second year in a row.
Champion. She's winning
2
a special
years.
magical chair that's going to come to her class. The winner every year gets the special chair.
Is that right? That's awesome.
That's
Great.
That was great. And I think, again, wonderful presentation, just, a lot of really great things that are happening at the school, so job well done.
Any of our student trustees have any questions? Mr. Ocampo?
Great presentation.
Do you have anything?
Oh, sure. So as you know, my daughter Carly is in ASB, and she's excited about the rally because she's going to be in charge for class of 2022. Most of the other class members are in sports, so it's going to be her and a few of the boys. And she said boys are the best workers.
She might have a different feeling tonight.
They just found out it's after school today, so she might have a different.
Oh, the rally? Oh, no, she did talk about that, yeah, and she wasn't sure how they would keep students there, and so the incentive is a dance, I guess, maybe. So it's great thinking. But no, I'm thank you so much for this presentation. It was really a really good job, and unfortunately we missed Mission Fusion because Carly had a competition out of town, but she apparently is going to be writing next year's Mission Fusion.
Yeah, I'm here today. I'm very excited about it.
So hopefully she'll be able to dance in it. But thank you so much. A great presentation. I just love seeing all the enthusiasm and all the work that all of you put into keeping the school energized. And Ms. DeLeon, thank you so much for all your work with them. Carly's always very enthusiastic about everything you're doing, and she has a lot of pride, and that's part of it, is being part of ESB. So thank you.
Yes, and just to echo on that, I'm always grateful for all the work that you do with our students. And usually ASB is really a reflection of the culture of the school, you know, and when people come and they're looking at which school they want to go to, it's usually things that are run through ASB. So there's been a dramatic shift in the way that people see Jefferson in the community, and a lot of that has to do with the work that you guys have done and what your wonderful, wonderful teacher has done with you. So I'm extremely grateful for that. Everybody, it's a continuation of what we all have known all along, and that this is more forward facing, and that a lot more people can see all the wonderful things that are happening inside of Jeff, and you know, having the community come in for the Multicultural Fair and all the other the car shows and all the other events that bring the community back into Jeff has just been phenomenal. And every single time we see all of you guys working those. So on top of all of your schoolwork and coming here tonight, all of the extra work that you put into Jefferson to make sure that it's a wonderful place for all of our students, I'm extremely grateful. So thank you guys all for coming here tonight. And we're just going to wrap this up so you guys can get out of here too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. Unless anyone has any objections, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve consent.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on. There was a lot of items on consent. So next is public comment. Do we have any cards?
There are no blue cards tonight.
Awesome. Moving on to discussion items. First item are our BPs, our board policies. Dr. Deloria?
We have the ELD.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is, I'm looking at the paper that was.
Oh, the paper one.
Yeah, that's a little, I will look at this one. So the first thing that's up is our ELD program update.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. I have to say, the advice Dr. Deloria received from the county was to cancel all non-essential events. That's how they put it. So I too had to cancel a lot of my events this week, and I joked with Corrine that I felt like the director of non-essential events. So I really, really like that you're listening to me talk about my job today, because it's giving me a sense of purpose again. So thanks. Lori Robinson, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Accountability. And let's get into this. This little program evaluation of our English language development program, which is for our English language learners. And our two main goals tonight is to keep the board updated about recent data. There's been some shift in demographic information, and then our annual update of our LPAC scores, as well as what our efforts have been to try and meet the needs of this student population and what still needs to be done. So with that, this is the current breakdown. And so I'll go through this briefly, but essentially You can break up students as they're designated as EL students into 4 groups. One is English only. To be English only, that means that when your parents first ever enrolled you into the district, they took something called the home language survey, and they answered English on all 4 of the questions. If they did not and indicated another language on one of those questions, they were asked to take probably CELT. In the last few years, it's been LPAC. And if you passed or demonstrated initial fluency in English, you're considered IFEP. So that's about 49.4 of the district, about half. The other half took that test and were classified as English learners. After a certain point, as English learners, students continue to take those tests. If they pass that test, demonstrate proficiency, along with some other measures, they become reclassified. And so that's another half of our students, a little over half. That 15%, 15.3%, 644 students, of those 556 are at Jefferson and Westmore high schools. And this is my favorite slide, because this is a slide that made me feel very validated in my own just observations of enrolling new students in the district. I actually got the original course breakdown of, so if a student is classified as EL, they're placed in either Ld1, 2, or 3 as newcomers. And I got that original data with the 221 students from a presentation that when Corinne Baca was the director of categorical programs in this job previously, she gave us this chart in a presentation she had done, and that was in the spring of 2017. You'll notice that just 3 years later, we now have 216 students in that newcomer. Actually, I might not have I updated those numbers, and I might not have added that total number together. But you can see where we once had 16 students in the ELD program, we now have 78. Numbers aren't exactly my favorite thing in the world, but Miss Kristen Ashford, our math TOSA, told me that I was okay in saying that that's nearly a 400% increase in our number of students in that program. And so those are students who are coming into our district new, usually from out of the country, and with very low exposure to the English language. So how we know what their exposure to the English language is that every year they must take the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, or LPAC. This is a breakdown of the scale score, just to give you kind of a sense of where students were at. Most of our students average the mean scale score fall into a level 2 out of 4 different levels, except for in the senior year. You'll notice that that is the level 1. Mostly the scale score is 1,448. One of the things I could think of potentially for that is a strong motivation for students to try their hardest on the LPAC is that it is one of the criteria for reclassification. When students are reclassified, it means they no longer have to be enrolled in various ELD or ALD courses. And when they are seniors, there's no longer exactly that same incentive, because even if they reclassify, that doesn't necessarily help them in their schedule in the same way it might for a student later. So that's potentially one reason that we're seeing that trend. This is also another slide that's important to talk about, because we are only at 12.12% proficient, which at first sounds like a bummer, not very great. And then you consider that to be considered proficient on the LPAC exam, students must receive a level 4, which is the top level of everything. And so when a student comes in and is first new to the country and they're taking the initial test and then taking the summative test, it's really hard to achieve that level 4. It takes some students many, many years. So this is the breakdown by domain. They actually on this test take a listening, speaking, reading, and writing test. Just as a note too, that test, the speaking test is delivered one-on-one, and they actually updated it this year. There's this really long part where they listen to this science thing and section, and then they have to summarize the information back to the person giving them the test. And it's a dreaded question amongst both test examiners and test takers. And they decided, you know what, 1's not enough. Let's add 2 this year. So the test went from being about like 12 to 15 minutes per student to 20 to 25 minutes per student. And so we must administer this test to all 600 some students. But we do fairly well in speaking. Reading continues to be a challenge, and actually if you notice, I don't have anything highlighted in that section, but listening is also a really big challenge on the test. It's an increasing challenge. We don't do as well as you would think in that particular area. I will say the passages are read very slowly. They listen to it on a recording, and then they have to answer multiple choice questions. We just are wrapping up this last year's administration of LPAC testing, and I can tell you, students look bored. They've got headphones on, they're listening, a lot of them aren't taking notes, and I was thinking to myself that perhaps, I know how hard our teachers work to support reading and writing in the ELD classrooms and in all content area classrooms. Increasingly. I know also that a lot of our schools have an instructional focus of structured student talk, so they're getting students speaking more and practicing that skill. I don't know how often we really teach strategies for listening. It's something that's more of like an assumed skill. So that's potentially an area of focus coming up. So this is the fun part. This is where you get to see all the different levels and how they kind of accordion in on each other. So see if you stay with me here. So a student is classified as either emerging, expanding, or bridging in their levels. We tend to correspond this to being like emerging is Ld1 students, expanding is probably likely our Ld2, maybe some Ld3, and bridging might be those very high level Ld3 and our long-term learner students. This gets reported out on LPAC in 4 levels. Just an extra bonus one in there for you. And now they have added something else, and this is going to be a big part of the dashboard indicator for English learners, and that is the ELPI, the new acronym we all get to learn and love, English Learner Progress Indicator. So essentially what they've done is, and I'm going to go back and forth between these 2 slides just to illustrate this point. So it's all based on these scale scores, right? To go up a full band, to go for a student normally to level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to number 3, and level 3, it's a lot that you have to increase your score by quite a lot of points. So what the state is trying to do is to give some incentive to show students that they're at least making progress and to let districts know that they're at least making progress. And so they've now broken up a lot of those scale scores into, there's now level 1. If you're a level 1, it doesn't matter if you start from the very bottom and you go towards the very top of that level 1, you're still level 1. But now they're acknowledging like, hey, you went from being a low level 2 to a higher level 2, or a low level 3 to a higher level 3, so that we can kind of stay encouraged. The breakdown of exactly what that looks like in scale score points is right here for 9th and 10th grade. And that now gives us this indicator. This is going to be our baseline indicator. So we don't have like, typically on the dashboard you get your red, orange, blue, whatever color it is. Right now, we're just getting a chart that looks like this. This is our overall district data. And essentially it's looking at a couple of different things. One, how many students actually increased a level, that they went from a level 1 to a 2 low, or from a high 2 to a low 3. We get some points for doing that. We also, they map who stays at a level 4, because not a lot of students stay at a 4, because if you get a 4, you're actually eligible for reclassification. You still have to demonstrate getting good grades, you have to pass another test as well. So not all students who get a 4 will reclassify, but a lot of them do. So that's that tiny little sliver right there in blue, the 3.1%. They track in teal, right up there, how many of them just maintain a level. And then the pink, which is what we don't want to see, which is that a student actually decreases the level. And so this is where we're at as a district. The total number is about like 45.1% increased or maintained to level 4. So that's actually pretty good. The state considers that medium. However, because life is fun, I'm going to go back to this slide in a minute, but this is the countywide distribution. And though by 45.1% we made it into the medium, we're not actually reflected in that medium in the countywide. We're a part of low. and that's because we didn't meet our participation rate. We have to get 95% of students to test, and I calculated it based on these numbers. Again, I had Miss Ashford supervising me, so I know this number is accurate. That we missed about 36 students because we got 94.5% of the students who missed it by 0.5. Ashford did the math for me today and said, yeah, if you had gotten about 3 more students, you might have gotten that 0.5. And I'm like, don't tell me that. That makes me want to cry. Because otherwise we would be included in that medium distribution. And I'm going to talk more about what we're doing to fix that issue this year in a second. But this is also how it's been broken down by school site with those same measures. I'll have you know the colors actually stay the same here, but the pink's at the top in this comparative level. So again, the pink's what we don't want to see. We want to see more of the purple, more of the dark blue, as much as possible. This is also affected, though, dramatically by the number of EL students, not just EL students at the site that are taking the score, but students who have a score 2 years in a row, because that's what they have to look at to gauge the growth. So for example, I just want to highlight Thornton. It's still kind of cool. They only have 11 students that had taken the test 2 years in a row, but of that, 6 of them went up a level. So that's great, you know, like over half. So that's what we're looking like in terms of that. And our distribution here. I did a hand calculation by all of the scores, scale scores that I could find for students that had taken the test in our district from 2 different years. And I found out that our scale score average is for students to go up about 20 points. When you look back at what it's kind of taking for those levels, it's kind of thinking that they should go up 1 progress indicator, like 30 points, 26 points, something along those lines. Since we're starting at 20, though I want, ideally, for all of our students to go up 1 ELPI, I'd be real happy if they could go up at least 25 scale score points and start seeing things kind of move that direction for all of our students. So what are we doing to kind of making sure this happens? Well, a lot of this is improving the testing procedures. I got real organized with my calendar this year to make sure we've already hit more school sites and done initial testing. We're completely done at Terra Nova. We are completely done at Oceana. We have already been to Thornton. At this time last year, we had probably only done half of the big schools, Jefferson and Westmore, finished up the Pacific schools, and I think we hadn't even gotten to Thornton yet. We've already visited Thornton once, so we're just in makeup mode right now, which is really great. Part of that is that the test has moved over to be a computer-based test, and that makes it a lot easier to track where students are and whose testing file is still open. We participated in the field test for the new computer-based testing, and so there was earlier training for teachers and more support in helping with the speaking test. We're fully staffed this year in my department. Yay, Patty's not completely by herself. We have Tino back, Mr. Tino, and he's been helping out, and so that's been really helpful in getting out to students. We had an assembly this year at Jefferson High School for the students to kind of talk to them about what the test was, how it kind of related to reclassification, what was sort of at stake for them in this whole process. And also, as you can see, a photo up there, that's from the Jefferson High School library. That's one of 2 English Learner Advisory Committee meetings with our parents, where we talked a lot about LPAC and what it meant and what they could do to support their students. So that's helping a lot. What we're really trying to get all of this LPAC in there for, and why we care so much about these scores, is that it is the gatekeeper to reclassification. And reclassification is when they can kind of no longer be considered English learning students, and they get to have that opening up in their schedule and all of that. These are numbers you've actually seen before, because this reclassification rate is always lagging a little bit behind, because we don't even get to start going through the reclassification process until I get all of the LPAC scores back. So I actually believe I presented this slide to you last year. I'm hoping to maintain this number as much as possible. Why I'm not more optimistic about this number growing a lot for this year is just because they actually raised the scale score for what it took to be a 4 in between these 2 administrations, because they thought the LPAC test was too easy, which is always fun. So we're hoping to just kind of maintain, if not increase this number a bit, but I don't know if we'll fully get there. So looking briefly at some dashboard data, some kind of good news. Just looking at this slide, this is a comparison from 2018 to 2019. And so making some improvements, not as much red across the board in some of these areas. One big concern that remains a concern is still in every single area. English learners are at least one indicator behind. So, and it stays, and this is actually pretty consistent throughout the district, that while the rest of the district in English and math on the SBAC in yellow, English learners stay firmly in the red category, which is 2 levels below. When we kind of look at this at Westmore and Jefferson, and I only highlight Westmore and Jefferson here because the rest of the school sites have such statistically insignificant number of English learners that they don't get called out in a specific group for a color designation, but this is kind of what it looks like here. You'll note that the college and career indicator at Westmore and the graduation rate at Jefferson are not what they should be for especially our English learner population. I believe a lot of this could be attributed to the program of classes that these students are required to take. Essentially, if a student comes in as a freshman and they're Ld1, the classes that they can take are extremely limited. They can essentially take a math course, PE, and a few other courses like that. They're doubled up in English classes until they exit our program. And so we've been looking since we did the Ed Trust West equity audit, where we took a look at a lot of the transcripts of students and what was keeping them from graduation, what was keeping them from making A through G rates and such. And a lot of this is the course programming that's extremely restrictive for our English learners. And so kind of, to keep up with what the staff is ready for and all of that, we're experimenting a lot with our EL3, which is our highest level of students, and talking about how we can kind of open up their schedule. They were scheduled in regular history class, whereas before they might be in a EL section of world history or US history, and that's helping them get a little bit of flexibility, because then that doesn't impact that they can only take that one particular class during one class period. So we're hoping to see that have some kind of an impact or influence. We continue our work with scope and sequence for our ELD designated coursework. This year I've really worked on getting a program called Elevation up and running. This is a program, progress monitoring tool, where I can really take a lot of look at different data, grades, scheduling for everything with the EL students. I can share test scores with other teachers really easily. I can share monitoring forms. So if I'm, wanting to see a student that was very close to reclassification last year, and I know that they're about to take the LPAC this year, I can actually send out a monitoring form to their teachers and just kind of say, how is this student doing? So it's been a really powerful tool to help us as well. But here's some of the things that we still need with a lot of this, especially based on some of the areas that we're still seeing show up red in the dashboard for our English learners. One of the first and foremost things is that increase in Ld1 students that I talked about at the beginning of my presentation, that's really coming from, we have a lot more students coming from Guatemala and Honduras, and there's been a lot of need, and potentially students that have been exposed to a lot of trauma. And we need to develop systems to welcome these students into our school system and make sure that they have what they need to be successful. Ms. Baca and Ms. Melissa Ambrose and myself have been working a lot on what those protocols are going to look like and how we're going to identify those students and help those students through. More importantly, we also need to come up with clearer terms to monitor those students for needs that arise, just because when they get here and we start out with a lot of stuff that they need, things come up, things change, and we need students to be able to catch them in those critical times to make sure that we get them what they need when they need it. We need to increase parent engagement at ELAC and DLAC meetings. I had a DLAC meeting last week where we went over this dashboard data, and I had some parents give me some excellent feedback on some direction for our LCAP, but I need more. And we need more at the school sites. And we need to train teachers and staff in implicit bias to address some of these issues of disproportionate suspension, because it definitely affects the English learners as much as we get better in that area, there is still a lag behind for our English learners, and so we need to address exactly what's causing that and how we can address it. We have, like I've said a few times now, more Ld1 students and not enough teachers familiar with teaching them. When you figure just 3 years ago, we had 16 students that were newer to the country with very low exposure to English, and now we have 78. That's a lot more students to serve and teachers that are going to interact with and serve those students that might not be fully prepared and need a lot of additional support in curriculum and instructional support to help them. They're also going out into these classes. Like I said, they're in PE classes, they're in guitar, they're in health, they're in a lot of these classes, and so there's this perception that it's ELD teachers that help teach students English and that they don't see these other teachers, but they are in these other classrooms, and those teachers need a lot of support too. We do have English learners TOSA's teacher on special assignment, kind of like an instructional coach at Westmore and Jeff. Well, at Westmore in theory, that position's actually been vacant this entire year. And we don't have a position that serves our Pacifica schools or Thornton High School as well. Even still, those TOSAs spend a lot of time helping me out with placement and testing, and we really need to cut all of that stuff out and get them in classrooms supporting teachers. That was some big feedback from my parents at the district English Learner Advisory Committee meeting as well, was that they really saw a strong need to see more support for the teachers in the classroom instruction. Constructing Meaning is now in its 6th cohort. Hopefully we'll be able to finish that 6th cohort. But we need, even with that, we're going to need strong implementation support because, a training can't be just a one-time thing. With this kind of learning, everybody needs kind of support as they're working through it and implementing things. So that's all from me. I tried to talk as quickly as possible, but I had so much to say when I ran through this earlier. I was like, oh my gosh, it took me so long. Sorry.
Opening it up for questions.
So if they can't, what's the restriction? So they can only take English learners can only take certain classes, and then if they don't get to take the other classes because they're taking English learning classes, then they don't have the classes enough to graduate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
They're A through G courses.
Right.
Because they're
even graduation can be really difficult depending on when they come into our system, and so they're looking at, like, there's actually AB 2121 actually like reduces so that they just have to fulfill state requirements. So sometimes we try and do that. Sometimes we try and some students will do a 5th year. These students are very much taking a lot of our summer school classes, but yeah, there are a lot of programmatic challenges to making sure they get all the classes they need.
With regards to the senior students with the scores being a little bit lower,
Mm-hmm.
do we have students, I was just thinking as you were talking, I mean, is it possible that we do have some newcomer students who are coming in as seniors and that's driving it down too?
It's less so, but we have had some. It's a little less common, but some. I would say it's more the long-term learners though that have just, maybe some of them have been taking this class or this test the entire time they've been students. So this is the 12th year and they're just kind of like
so done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can see that.
Yeah.
How many English learner students, new students, do we get? The numbers used to be pretty high. Every week we'd get 1 or 2 or...
Yeah, last year was the highest number that I saw come in. I don't have an exact number, but I do know that we had to open up an additional EL1 last year, like towards maybe around this time last year. So we prepped this year thinking, I actually listened to an NPR piece from Oakland Unified who kind of went through something similar. I related to it so hard. They were like, we plan to have so much more students, so we opened up all these additional sections and they're already out of room again. And that was actually our issue a little bit too. We planned this year to have 2 sections of EL3, 2 sections of EL2, and 2 sections of EL1 at Jefferson, and then 1 section of EL1 at Westmore, because that was already more than we had had the year previous. And just recently, after we came back from President's Week, we had to open up additional sections of EL1 at Westmore High School. So there's 2 sections of EL1 at each one of the sites. But it has slowed down. It has slowed down just a little bit as of right now, whereas this time last year, we were still seeing an increase in numbers.
I can't even fathom how you can open up 2 new sections.
We had to rearrange the master schedule.
Mm-hmm. And we obviously don't want to do that, but it is really hard to kind of look into a crystal ball and say, you know, oh, we thought we had planned for this, and then you know, it's outpacing our planning.
And you have
So what's been the response with staff when it comes to you using Elevation? I mean, are you using, when you see the data coming through, when you make some suggestions, what's been the response?
Probably not as positive as me. You know, I love it. I'm like, yay, Elevation. But they are like, another thing I have to check for scores, because they want kind of everything to be in one place. And it is. We're getting Data Zone up to that point, and it totally is. There's just some features that Elevation has specific to English learners that Data Zone doesn't have. So there's a little bit of that frustration with them, and you know, it's a different login and all of that. But for teachers that I've gotten to use it, they seem to really appreciate it as well, because it is a really friendly interface and it's very easy. The prompts that it'll send you to fill out the monitoring forms runs through our email. So it's a really easy way for me to kind of pester people, but like naturally through their email. So it seems to have been fairly well received, but we do need more training on it. It's just that's the challenge of this entire year, is finding time for training and time to talk about that when there's so much to talk about.
So, thank you for the presentation. I'm not going to go in too deep of a dive, because I'm hoping that we can discuss a lot of this in LCAP. I don't even understand the breakdown, just to be honest. I mean, I read through that a couple of times, and the 3 different levels make 0 sense. Like, that's crazy. So, like, and again, this is the same thing I'm going to say in response to the dashboard. Like, how much attention do we pay to something that's presented to us that doesn't make sense? How much do we move the students to try to get into something that doesn't make sense? Is kind of where I'm at right now. The other thing is that with the change, the dramatic change of more and more students coming over, I don't want to deny a student education, because this country is so focused on everybody learning English. So that's just another thing that I think, you know, I don't want to go into deep dive here, but in LCAP, what can we do? I know we do a really great job, and I don't want to hinder that work, but what else can we do so that we don't cut off access to the one thing that might help them in the future? Like, knowing how to speak English is great, but there's a lot of people that, even at my job, that do not speak English that are employed, right? Because they have a college degree in their native country. So I don't want to come here and where the barrier to them receiving an education that they might have gotten in their home country is because we're forcing them to have to go through all these barriers first. So that's kind of my focus, is how can we, or what can we do to, of course, learning English is helpful, but how can we make sure that it's not the end all be all? And then I agree with you. That's why I'm so really involved in the work with the Equity Network and everything, and how can, because of how this country feels about language, making sure that the lack of English is not equaling a suspension because you can't explain something, because something is being blamed on you, etc. So what can we do to further help with that transition? And then last, I'm glad that we're looking into doing something to help within transition, especially for students that are coming through various detention centers. My only guidance would be, none of us have been through that, so how do we even understand what to offer if we've never had that experience? So I'm hoping that we can draw from somehow somebody that knows that experience, so that we're not offering help that's not something that is exactly.
Yeah. That's been one of the best parts about working with Melissa Ambrose, is that she is just phenomenal at reaching out to community resources, and all three of us, Baka and Melissa and I are all really good at being like, we know what we don't know.
Right, okay.
And we don't know this. We're not in this business, but we're seeing a need. And she has just been incredible about reaching out to a lot of resources. We've met with people from San Jose State University, San Francisco Unified, Oakland Unified, and their international school program is something that we're looking into as well. And so, yeah, this is going to take outside resources because it's not something that we've previously addressed in this way in JUHSD. So yeah, and we're taking our time with it as well because we want, to really make something like this work, it's going to take the support of so many people at so many different levels. And so just making sure we have a good plan, and then we know also that we're going to have systems in place to train people on this plan.
I don't know, is there anything else for you?
So I do want to say I guess three things. Can you go back to the slide that shows the reclassification rate?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes this can be confusing to people, but I would like everyone to remember that we're not shooting for, or is the state expecting us to have 100% reclassification rate, right? I mean, you've got new students coming in and you don't go from no English to English proficient in 1 year. So that 22% is really a very good number. I'm really happy with that, because when you look at the research, it's 5 to 7 years before you become fluent in the language. So, if you go by that, you're talking about something that's down around 14 to 16%. So that's really good. So I wanted to point that out. The second thing is Jefferson, working with Corrine and Lori and with Melissa, have put together a monitoring committee. So typically when you're a school, high school, elementary, doesn't matter, you've got a large number of English learners, you have some kind of committee who meets regularly to monitor the progress, their academic progress, their attendance progress, behavior, their social, emotional progress. And when students aren't performing at the rate that you would expect, you do a real deep dive, what is it? So in fact, you have a meeting tomorrow, I think, right? Yeah, Jose is in too. So it started at Jeff first to get all the bugs worked out, but that needs to get to all of our schools that has those high numbers, because it isn't just about the academics. And the final thing I would say, because I'm very committed to English learners, is that it's unfortunate in this country that we put this emphasis on English before the A through G, or the college readiness. And there are districts who do both. They focus on the English and they're providing a rigorous curriculum. So in my first district, one of the things we did, and it really bucked the system, is for those students who wanted to take, for those beginners who wanted to take math in Spanish, we had teachers teaching math in Spanish. And you can't do that for too long because of the laws in California. But imagine if you can learn math in your own language, the leg up you have on that. Not only for math, but into science as well. So those are the things that I think we need to do, is go out and see what are those schools where they're getting the English learners not only proficient in English, but getting them in a legitimate way through a rigorous curriculum. We should be looking for those schools.
And also, it's just like a confidence builder. Like, if they spend the majority of their time in this class where they're not successful, what does that mean for the rest of the classes? So if they could have more access to more classes, there's more avenues for success. I mean, it's just,
they can still learn math, and they can still learn math and science and Spanish.
Right.
There's actually a lot of research that supports the more support you have in whatever language you were first exposed to, the easier it is to acquire all other languages and knowledge. And we're actually really working towards supporting that. One of the issues is that it was illegal for a really long time. And only in 2016 did Proposition 58 pass in order to reverse some of that. But some of the damage has already been done. In that time, there were a lot of teachers who were no longer receiving bilingual credentials and getting that kind of certification, or even encouraging them to use that valuable skill. Yeah, so it's,
and that's your issue
but it's
with English
changing.
Learners, right?
Yeah.
Because those are students who started in kindergarten not knowing English, and they were taught to read in English, which is ridiculous and absurd. And so we're wondering why all these years later students are still struggling. So we need to undo some of that.
I appreciate the presentation coming from a English learner person myself, so I remember being assimilated. So it's really nice to be able to think that you want to celebrate and see it as an asset instead of being like a hindrance to the community, you know, because it would have been, you know, because then like you kind of get boxed into this little special group of people that doesn't. Yeah, exactly, and they work really, really hard to put you back into the population so that you're just like everybody else, right? So, you know, so I definitely appreciate the work that you, and the thinking of just trying to be out the box and say, okay, instead of just putting that's what I'm asking about the graduation rate, so you can only graduate if you know English, right, and have A2G, but it's just because it's a barrier, not because of anything else, so I really don't feel like that's fair to this.
They can graduate and not be reclassified. I mean, that is, they can meet their graduation requirements and not reclassified. I don't know what that number of students are, but we do have students in that situation.
It's still hard, I guess, you know, like make it so that it's like, again, you know, what we always say, like meet them where they're at, right? So, right. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for deciphering everything.
Well done, Ms. Robbins.
Yes. Give me a little clap for that one.
I'm going to do something close.
And you say it with such joy and passion.
Jose, it's so nice of you to come and support your wife.
Yes, thank you. He's always here.
I might not be in the choice.
You're right.
All right, so now moving into the board policies. We have a couple.
So I apologize, these should have been on, you've seen all these in the recap, but in February, they should have been on the February 11th agenda, and I somehow made a mistake and didn't get them on. So there's nothing controversial here, this is just getting us policies where we need to have them. I think one of the things on here is that the policy that talks about academic standards is pretty clear, that where California has content standards, we're requiring teachers to teach the California content standards. I think that'll be helpful when Ms. Bach and others are moving forward with curriculum. But nothing crazy.
So the only one that stood out to me was the one on sexual health. I mean, I thought the language was a little dated. That, you know, one, it's like teach the value and prepare students to maintain committed relationships such as marriage. I was like, okay, well, that wouldn't work for me. I'm fine not being married. I don't know why we would teach that and have that as a policy. And the other one was
maybe add.
Well, I don't even know why.
I
don't even know why. I mean, the value of a committed relationship. Why are we why is that important? And the other one was that shall, you know, providing examples of relationships and couples shall be inclusive of same-sex relationships, and that's by the definition exclusive because all relationships, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of different sexualities. I mean, so it's just this. I don't know. This one I think just needs to be rejiggered a bit.
Maybe we should table it. You know, even CSBA isn't up to date on all their policies. So when I update our policy to CSBA's, that doesn't mean CSBA's is up to 2019. So this one is actually from 2018. And a lot has happened in 2 years when it comes to gender and sexuality. So my guess is there's going to be, you know, once they get through all of these, we'll go back again, and I'm sure there's going to be an update on
Right,
this.
or could we do it? Because I mean, like the other one was the emphasis on abstinence for me. Like I don't mind teaching abstinence, but also condoms are 95% effective. So we all know that abstinence only doesn't work. Like the kids.
Really?
I know, it's crazy. But you know, so
I'll go back and look at it.
Okay.
I don't want to change anything that comes from a law. So, but I'll go back and take a look and see what I can.
Right.
I'll take a look too.
I had some discomfort with some parts of this too.
Yes, I was reading through and I was kind of shocked. I was like, what? But other than that, the rest of them.
I don't write the laws.
Yeah.
There's the one that.
Okay.
There's a policy.
I agree.
shoot, ceremonies and observances.
I'll go back and look at it.
Right, and so just so we can move on, do you have it, or is it okay? No.
Hold on. I think there was one thing. Is it an AR?
Do you want to just email it?
And I have a little more flexibility in the regulation,
Right.
whereas the policy is really addressing the law, so.
Oh, this is AR.
Maybe give me a little time to, we've got some time.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just, Sarah, I was just curious, ceremonies and observances. Says that each school shall conduct patriotic exercises daily.
I was surprised that I didn't.
Shall consist of the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we do that? Do we have to do that?
So
Because
we're supposed.
according to this, we're supposed to do that.
be. It's the law, it doesn't have to be a pledge. It can be.
Okay, it's an AR anyway, but that is.
I don't know that we're going to audit it.
It's with by ed code, that's so weird, okay. Nothing else.
All right. One time for board policy. Moving on to business services, our second interim budget. Ms. Harris.
Good evening, President Salahuddin, members of the board. Before you tonight, you have our second interim report. This covers, I think, July 1st through January 31st of this fiscal year. Thank you.
Sorry, Corinne, be in your area for a minute.
So I just wanted to go through some of the key pieces of this report with you real quick. It does show that we will be able to meet our financial obligations for the remainder of this year and for the subsequent 2 fiscal years, which means that I am recommending the board certify us as a positive certification. Some changes since the last interim report. We did get some revised tax projections, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail when I get to the tax chart. We had a new benefit plan year, so every year that gets adjusted a little bit. One big area this year is our lack of being able to hire for some positions has put us into contracting to cover for those positions. So the contracting numbers have gone up, and as a result, some of the books and supplies numbers have come down to cover that, especially when it's site funds that are covering the contracts. They will adjust their materials budgets to cover that. And then last interim, I let you know that we had to move some money from general fund to Fund 21 for the Prop 39 reimbursement. We had gotten some advice that we could use that money for any kind of facilities, and then our auditors told us that no, it had to be in Fund 21. So that was moved from the restricted ending balance, so that doesn't really change our reserves. But the other change to the contributions is an increase to the food service contributions. We had estimated about $130,000 for that contribution, and now it looks like it's going to be closer to $740,000. So that makes our anticipated ending fund reserves to be about 5.36% when we talk about general fund only. That is lower than what we anticipated was around 10%. As a basic aid district, being around 10% is a lot better financial situation, but that's why we have reserves, is so that we can take situations like this and get through them. So the major impacts from the beginning budget to now is that our property tax projections are coming in lower than we expected. We projected 6% increase, and now the latest projection we got is 2.4%. So real quick, I'll show you this graph. I took it out a lot further than I have in the past. In the past, I was starting with like 2014 and moving on. And I just wanted to get even more of a historical perspective to see what could be the possibilities. So right now, we are looking at a 2.4% increase over last year. 2% is generally the minimum you see because everybody's taxes, property taxes can go up by 2%. So that's, so when it goes below 2%, that means that something is happening in the economy that's putting a burden. What you know that we've only been basic aid 2 years since I've come on board, and so I'm still learning how to do these projections. What I've learned yesterday, I got to talk with Miss McManus from Jefferson, no, from San Mateo Union. She's the CBO there, and she told me to look historically at what our December projection was compared to our June. So we get tax projections in August for the current year that we're in. So August of 2019 was the first look I got at what we could possibly be for 2019-20. Then we get a revision in December, and then we get our final, what we will receive for 19-20 in June of 20. So we don't know how much money we're getting until the very end of the fiscal year. And so she said to look back at the projected December to your actual in June and see what the difference is. And so I looked at that for the last 4 years, and it's been between 1.5% to 2.5% higher. So every year the June actual is higher than the December projected. So I do think that this 2.4% is going to go up probably to closer to 4.5%, which is still lower than the 6% we had expected, but not as low as I was worried it would be. So in the multi-year projection, these are the assumptions that we're making. So I did assume, even though this year's tax projection is lower than the 6%, I did still continue the 4% for the next 2 years. That we wouldn't have any increases to compensation beyond the annual step-in column. So we are still, we'll negotiate that, but in this projection I didn't assume any increases. I assumed that we would have the retirement increases to STRS and PERS that are legislated. I assumed COLA increases to health benefit contributions, and I assumed that our food service contribution would go back to what it has been historically, which is about $180,000 per year. And we are finished with paying off the debt on the Daly City Youth Health Center remodel. So those are the assumptions that are going into this. And you can see that our projected reserve for this year and the coming 2 years is still not recovering from what we had projected it would be for this current year. As a basic aid district, what I've been showing you is that there is a projection of how much we get from property taxes, and then below that is some level of floor that we can't go below. The LCFF formula gives us that floor. So if something were to happen with the market and the taxes just fell off, we still have that safety net of the LCFF formula. So what this chart shows you is what percent of our budget is at risk, and that's what that blue bar is. So for this current year, 5.5% of our budget is at risk if the property taxes were to come in below what they're projecting. So that's how much money is at risk before we hit that floor of LCFF. And then the orange bar shows what our reserve percentage is in Fund 1. We do have an additional small amount, well, I don't know, 1.5 or 1.2% reserve in Fund 17 that we could go to if we needed to. That's the special reserve that we have set aside to pay retiree benefits. And we use that as cash flow for each year when our retirees pay into their health benefits. So we don't want to touch that, but if we needed to, we could. And so that's what the gray bar is the combination of Fund 1 and Fund 17. So for the next 2 years, if we don't make changes, it's looking like we don't have the reserves to cover the money that is at risk. So it does put us in a precarious situation that if something happened in the tax revenue, we could become insolvent fairly quickly without having enough reserves to cover that money that's at risk. So we have our April study session coming up to talk about budget. And so I think in that meeting, it will be good for us to talk about what are ways we can look at to restore our reserves. Restoring reserves is something you can do with one-time money. So if we decided to make some temporary changes, that can increase the reserves and not have to be something that goes on for years. But we'll be able to have those discussions in our study session. So we have the next steps is we have the study session in April, and then we'll have the budget adoption in June, and between then we can have more reports as the board wants. Any questions on second interim?
I think we'll be able to take a deeper dive in our study session, so I'm waiting for that, but
Just to be clear, the blue bar is the amount that the percentage we are above base LCFF.
yeah.
Correct. You got it.
And then how much reserve we have to cover. So all of this, this breakdown is always extremely helpful for me. And this was actually really helpful because that's the information I was looking for. It's a precarious time for school districts right now. I'm feeling blessed that we don't have to lay anybody off. I'm looking at all our surrounding school districts, and it's not good. But this is a little scary, so keeping an eye on the prowl about what we need to do so that we can not have to go below LCFF and have to rely on being state funded is kind of the goal and one of the things that I really focus on. So thank you for helping us with that vision. I don't know if there's anything else. All right, moving on.
So this is an action item.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is an action item. Sorry.
Move to approve the second interim report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, okay. Okay, so moving on to 16A, Chartwells contract extension, Ms. Van Raphorst.
Thank you. So in March of 2019, the board approved a contract with Chartwells to provide food service management, and this contract is reviewed annually and can be renewed if the board decides to. If the board does not decide to renew this contract, they can postpone the decision, or they can decide not to renew it tonight. We have someone here from Chartwells. James King is here to talk to you a little bit about the program. And thank you for waiting all this time, Mr. King.
You're welcome, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the board president, the board members, and the student member, and Dr. Laura for having me again. It's been a year since I've been here, and I apologize for coming back under these circumstances. First of all, I want to acknowledge what a great representative in the district you guys have in Rena. So I was very glad to be here during that and see her passion for what she actually does. Very passionate about that, so thank you. I personally want to apologize for not being successful in delivering the results for both the district and for Chartwells. We had made some projections that we were very optimistic about and that we did not hit. We did propose a path moving forward, and this path would have some safeguards in place that we would monitor on a regular basis, often and quite frequently, to make sure that those safeguards were monitored on a regular basis. So they would look at measuring and monitoring and reporting back both labor and participation budgets for our student meal counts. Our focus will be on speed of service, student engagement, and continued efforts on food quality. Our changes from the prepackaged heat and serve has been well received, and so I think the quality has been well received from the students in the lunchtime. We will continue these efforts for improvement in the department, if approved. I do want to thank Tina and her efforts for the past year in this transition with us. So when we looked at the labor projections, we recognized that we needed extra labor for the meals served and for the menu that was proposed and that we're currently doing. I think that we should have reviewed hiring more part-time people versus the full-time people and the extra cost of the benefits that were incurred at that time. So I want to thank you. Yeah.
Opening up for questions?
I was part of the selection committee that interviewed Chartwells.
Yes.
And it's actually, quite frankly, really disappointing that what was sold to us was frankly a bill of goods, right? I mean, there's just complete miss in projections, and that's just not acceptable, especially given what we just saw with our budget status. For us to be, basically over 3 times what we expected to spend. In speaking with some of our staff, I mean, I appreciate you saying there's a path forward, but the stuff that we've heard from staff is you guys just simply really weren't there, period. And so how can we trust that you'll actually be present moving forward with, 3 months left in the school year?
Sure.
It's pretty frustrating from my perspective. While yes, food quality is improved over what we've had in the past, but we're not able to get the return whatsoever. And it's really, really just disappointing, and I'm kind of not sure what to do at the moment.
I have to echo. I mean, our kids were so excited that they were involved in choosing Chartwells. And then the problem became the food was so good that, the lines were too long. And that was good news, But then to be in the predicament we're in, budget-wise, and that, we were so excited at the very beginning when Chartwells came here, and, we were just so excited, but none of it happened. I don't know how this could happen. And then now you're saying that it's not going to happen again. We have safeguards in place. Well, what are the safeguards? They should have been in place at the very beginning. So what are your safeguards? Identifying what your missteps were during the school year.
So one of the things that we have identified is the number of hours and the projected return on student participation increase. Moving forward, what we're proposing is reducing the number of hours that we currently have to actually serve the menu, serve the people without cutting the program back to the level of not engaging the students and having them enjoy the progress that we've made so far. So the labor is the one thing. It's going to be a targeted, specific area that we will be able to address. Well, we continue to want to market in student choice. So with our student choice, it creates an engagement and an excitement. So we're still looking at bringing in more students. We are proposing adding an additional lunch service where the lines aren't so long, and we won't have to increase the labor at all with that additional service time.
So what was the projection for total number, like the percentage of students served at each of our schools? Was there a target projection number of how many students you were thinking you would serve, like this year, next year?
So in the original proposal, I think we had come in around 30% higher. And in this proposal, we're actually proposing 7%.
7%
Yes, ma'am.
increase. So will a 7% increase in purchasing of school lunches, will that cover the reduction in staff? Like, how much staff do we have to cut in order to have only a 7% increase in lunches served cover that?
So I think right off the top of my head, I think we have a current 140 hours per day, and we're proposing going down to 94 hours per day. Some of these employees would go from a full-time benefit to part-time benefit, which will be a significant reduction in overall cost, but only a reduction, I think, of 40 hours. And with the increase of 7%, which we think we can get from the additional lunch service added.
And so to add a lunch service, like we are not factoring the cost of what it takes to change a master schedule, right? So there's a huge cost to the district to change a master schedule to add a lunch.
Yes.
What is going, or like, what was the plan on helping or breaking up the line with pre-ordered food?
So we still want to do the pre-ordered food, but we want to test it out at one of the high schools that has 90 students, where they could pre-order via phone. But I just need to get with Tina and the director, I think Christy, to make sure that those kids have access to a phone at that school where we could do a pre-order. And once we test it out there, I think we can roll it out at other schools as well.
Do you have this system working in other school districts of composite size?
Yes.
So, go ahead.
So we only have it working in one of our school districts in Buckeye, Arizona.
So it's only one other district is using this system?
Yes.
So one of the issues that we heard was the training of the staff. So would the staff person that works with us, so if only one other district is using it, that person probably has no training on how to use the system?
So the system's not difficult to learn. It's the adaptation of the students to want to do this. A lot of the students don't see the benefit in it because they like the social time of lunch versus the pre-ordering and just getting it and going. They like the whole social aspect of it. It may work in certain schools here, and I would love to test it out at the one that I'd mentioned earlier.
Given the fact that our staff told us this evening that there's signage issues, there's communication issues, there's issues with food deliveries and insufficient food for the recipes that they have to prepare, how can we trust that this would even work? I mean, if you can't do the basics right, why would we want to do this? I mean, there was a level of frustration that our staff shared with us, you know, where they simply said, you know, they're trying to cook the stuff that's been prepared on the menu, and they don't even have the food necessary, the ingredients necessary to prepare all of the menus that are being provided. And so
when that, so that seems to have been going on for a while. Why hasn't that adjustment been made sooner, right? You know, so if we know that the menu is of such that we cannot get all the items available, why wasn't an adjustment made earlier to make adjustments to the menu so we can always have the items and resources needed so that they could prepare the food?
So actually, this is the first I'm hearing of this, and I'm
that worries me too now.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like these are things that you should know already.
It is. It's very concerning, especially since we have a chef that is here on site, very present, and works with the kitchen managers on a daily basis to order the food that they require.
Right.
Since that has been brought up to the board, I promise you I will take it up personally and get down to the understanding of it.
How long, I mean, so that was the whole point. Like, I thought that we were gonna get a chef that had a lot of experience, and it seems like this chef is brand new, and in a district that is brand new. So I don't understand why there wasn't any foresight to say, you know, this isn't probably not the best placement to put a brand new chef in a school district that's coming from a struggling lunch program and is moving into something entirely new. It's kind of the blind leading the blind.
So our chef came from our sister company called Flick that does private K-12 schools. So she comes with a lot of K-12 experience, and it's upscaled school experience. So that was the reason why we brought her here. So I think maybe she could probably, the chef could learn a little bit more about the communication style towards the kitchen managers. But Our goal was to completely come in and train the employees and the kitchen managers to be able to cook the foods, upgrade the foods, improve the quality. I think that's still a progression that we're looking at. I think there were several balls that we dropped, and we acknowledge that for sure. Speed of service is one of those things that we definitely need to work on. So if we're fortunate enough to move forward, we'd like to look at the investments of, purchasing some burger slides and pizza slides to speed the service up even more.
But I don't think at the expense of $700,000.
Right.
That we can still experiment. As you can see, Mr. Rappers showed the budget of where we're at and how much of the chunk of the reserve has already been taken up just on the food service, so that's really concerning. And then also you're mentioning about cutting the staff. So, we have committed to hire all these full-time staff members. We cannot just go back and say, so by the way, since we have to cut, budget, we're gonna have to cut your hours. I mean, I don't really know if anybody would stay because they're relying on a full-time job to
And not just hours, I mean, you're putting us in the position that we're gonna have to take away healthcare.
Yes.
Right, and I do not like being put in that position where I'm being told I have to take away community members' healthcare that they've had. And now we're, it's hard to go from having healthcare to not having healthcare. I mean, that's one of the roughest transitions that you can go to.
Absolutely.
So, and you're putting us in the position that we have to do that with multiple staff members. So why would they stay? And then why would they stay with promise that you will, be able to get them out of that when you are the reason why we're here. So, this is extremely disappointing to me. I mean, I don't really need, it's, for me, it's hard for me to say I want to extend a contract when I'm looking at what's happening in the past, and that to be close to over $1 million in the hole on this, that is just, would be unacceptable for any other program in the district. Like, we would just not accept that. So, it's hard for me to have that be for somebody that we're contracting out with, somebody that the whole reason why we're contracting out is so I don't have to worry about this. Mm-hmm. So now, not only do we have to worry, but there's additional burden being put on us to kind of course correct. And so for me, that's kind of, we can't walk that back, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just not really seeing how we move forward from here and have it be successful.
I feel the same way. It makes me really disappointed. But it's, the numbers are the numbers, and the lines are the lines, and what our staff is saying about the communication. The chef, they rarely ever saw the chef. They're constantly scrambling. And yet they put out this food that the kids like.
So we would still like to be the partners to help correct this position, and we do apologize.
Thank you for coming here and talking to us about this, but right now, I don't know if anyone has anything else to add.
No, I've said my piece.
So, Tina, do you need any action from the board tonight, or?
So, if they don't take action on this, I just need direction as to whether to go out for a new RFP or to continue the conversation.
I'm feeling like this is just, I would like to go out for another RFP and see what we can do, because I just don't have faith that this could be corrected when the issues are so monumental. There's a lot of issues. Some of these are basic things that I would think would be kind of a no-brainer. Like, there shouldn't be signage issues. It's just,
or supply issues.
Right. That's just, and if there were, they should have been corrected as soon as somebody said something. Like, we shouldn't have to be here and on top of everything else, like we just can't even get signs is
We're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, there's so much that we're, having to deal with.
Yeah.
And like you said, we contract out so we don't have to worry about it.
So my direction would be to let's move forward with RFP.
Yeah, I agree
Motion to
too.
do it, or is it just?
No, I just think it's just direction.
Just direction.
I'm fine with that.
So unless there's anything else, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on in the agenda, looking at the 2020 ballot for CSBA Delegate Assembly. There are 3 vacancies, and you just have to,
You have 3 votes.
3 votes.
And you can only vote once for each person.
Right.
Stand it. I know all 3 people. Like, I looked and I was like, I know these people.
can't stand these people.
Well, I didn't say that. I know. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, so Eddie can move in because I didn't run again.
So this,
I'm done with CSBA.
this is an action item.
Yeah.
So, to give,
Move to accept the ballot as presented.
Second.
vote each.
Oh, 1 vote.
Okay.
Yeah, for each person.
Person.
So there was a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Here we go. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Consideration for future agenda items.
Do we have a date for our LCAP?
I'll be doing it all together at one day.
Yeah, I thought we had it, like, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. April 18th. Yeah, I'm,
I'll be a bachelorette that weekend, so.
all right,
It's a
so.
better way to spend it with us.
Well, it's all about LCAP. It is a work study on LCAP and budget.
So I don't know, the only thing is because I think we're fine. I don't know how long we're gonna be in there, but just to, we can talk about that later. Okay, so.
I mean, do you think 9 to 12 is gonna be long enough?
No, that's what I was
We
saying.
have
don't
it,
think
I have
it's-
it as 9 to 3 on my calendar.
Yeah, I think it should be
I think
9.
we extend.
Yeah, we, 9 to 3.
Okay.
9 to 3.
Well, verbally, I remember us
Yeah.
extending it, like we were gonna be there all day and just do it all in one shot.
Let's all hang out. I mean,
And send that out to everybody, 9 to 3.
I had 9 to 12. No, at least we do it all in one day, I mean,
I had 9 to 12, is it 9 to 3 now?
9 to 3, yeah.
Yeah, she'll send out
They'll
a,
probably be longer
Okay,
than
thank you.
3.
So we adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of 2 persons. The first person is Serafino James Presta, father of our beloved JUHSD Associate Superintendent of Human Resources and Staff Relations, Tony Presta. Mr. Presta passed away on February 7th, 2020. I will, one of the things that I say is that as a parent, that I could go at any time because I know I have 3 amazing citizens in the world to represent me. And so I know that he had to have peace in his passing because he has such a wonderful daughter in you, and you're a wonderful representation of who he was. So I'm so grateful that you're here. The other person is Syrian O'Donnell, former student of Jefferson High School and son of JUHSD District Psychologist Yvette Z. Syrian passed away in February of this year as well. We, the JUHSD Board of Trustees, send our condolences to the Presta and O'Donnell families, along with a host of their friends and loved ones. So with that, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Do you need tissue?
Yeah, you caught me off guard. Wasn't expecting that.
I already caught you off guard a while back.
I've been fine since I came back.